Hello guys, welcome to the Inspiration and Enlightenment Slow Talk. This is part of a series in which I compare enlightenment and psychology. Today I will talk about the Big Five. Recently the Big Five have made some noise because they have been used on social media to profile people and target them for advertising and political campaigns. So I want to have a closer look at them and also relate them to the context of enlightenment. Psychology has the same dilemma as enlightenment does. Both cannot prove anything because all psychological and enlightenment experiences are subjective. So instead of a scientific objective proof, the only thing we can rely on is subjective verification, which of course cannot be objectively proven. Okay? And that's where faith comes in. Okay? So we assume something and then we try to subjectively verify it, and until we have verified it or not verified it, we need to rely on our faith. So in enlightenment, we have to have faith to work on our personal evolution and work towards the realization of our soul and the higher self. Now, enlightenment has a bit of an advantage compared to psychology, because when the great work unfolds, we produce or we get a second set of senses which can make invisible things visible. So out of this dilemma that in psychology everything is subjective, came the need to have something they could hold on to scientifically. So and that's why they came up with the idea to use statistics to describe personality traits. Okay. So personality psychology used to be a set of theories which was produced by various psychologists. There's Freud, there is Jung, there's Piaget, and that's what psychologists have been relied on, these different set of bodies of thoughts. But they somehow overlap and somehow contradict. So what if they find something that every psychologist could agree on? So this is what Paul Coster and Robert McRae did. They asked thousands of people hundreds of questions about character traits and analyzed the data using factor analysis. So the goal was to find character traits that clump together, that have some sort of an affinity. Yeah, for example, if a person is extrovert, the person may also be open to new experiences, or talkative and friendly and social. And the interesting thing they found is that there are 5 major clouds or domains of personality traits. And they called them extroversion, neuroticism, conscientiousness, agreeableness, and openness. The first time I heard about the Big Five, instantly the 5 elements came to mind. These elements are ancient and they are known under their blinds, spirit or ether, or quintessence, and fire, water, air, and earth. There's much confusion about these 4 or 5 elements due to their ancient naming. First of all, they are of course not fire, fire, water, water, air, air, and earth, earth. They are energetic elements that constitute physical matter. So you could think of them as the elements of the chemical elements. And they are vibratory building blocks that put matter together. Yeah. And in essence, modern physics agrees with that. Chemical elements or atoms, subnuclear particles, they're just bunches of vibes. Yeah? Apparently vibrating strings according to the string theory. Yeah. But the 5 elements are not only the building blocks of chemical elements, they also produce the 5 modes of matter, which is plasma, energy or light, fire, liquids, gaseous and solids. So if one element prevails, let's say the water element prevails in a particular object, this object becomes liquid. The existence of these 5 elements can somewhat be proven. So I'll put a link into the show notes with an experiment where the artist there has a metal surface on which he puts sand, fine sand, and different tones produce or assemble the sand in different geometrical forms. So that's really, you can actually see the elements being summoned or being made visible. I mentioned earlier that the great work and advanced enlightenment practices develop a second set of senses that make invisible things visible. And people who pursued enlightenment have done this for, I don't know, just to throw a number out there, 50,000 years. And they have been able to see these elements, these 5 elements, during meditation. And they have described them, and turns out they have geometrical forms and colors. Yeah, let me show that to you. So the spirit or ether or quintessence is a blue, violet or indigo vesica piscis. Fire is a red triangle, water is a white crescent, air is a blue circle, and earth is a yellow square. And when they start mixing, they produce these various mixed geometrical forms and colors. The 5 elements are not only the building blocks of chemical elements in the external world, they also form the substance of the mind. So this is important. In enlightenment, the substance of the external world, which seems physical, more or less, is the same substance as that of our psyche. The universe is a mind. And that's why we are able to understand the external world, which I will explain that later, how that works, as well as we are able to influence the external world through our minds. In fact, we always do that, and this mechanism is called karma. The 5 elements produce the 5 main mental manifestations in our minds. That's spirit or esprit, intention, feelings, thoughts, and action. And we control these manifestations, or elements, as you could also call them, through the 5 basic mental faculties. We receive spirit or inspirations through intuition, our link to the higher self. We channel intention through focus. We form emotions and feelings through imagination, which then turn into desires. And we produce and analyze thoughts with the intellect. And last but not least, we act with the body. And act can be physical action or speech. So how does that connect with the Enlightenment psychology model? Let me bring it up. Let's take meditation for an example. Because during meditation we use simultaneously all of our mental faculties. So when we meditate, we become receptive to the higher self and ask for inspiration or intuitions. And through that we attract esprit as a higher energy, but we also attract the inspirations which arrive to us as ideas, and which are mental seeds that can develop into desires and thoughts later on. But receptivity to the above alone does not make meditation. We also need to focus at the same time on a particular objective, and that's what channels our intention and our mental energy. The most effective way of focus is using imagination, meaning we focus on a particular image, or we develop a particular image in our minds. When we do that, we marry or fuse the images with appropriate feelings. Yeah, that's the water element. So for example, if we try to imagine our soul or the higher self, we infuse the image with feelings of love and beauty and happiness and purpose. Okay. So the image, which is then fused with certain feelings, attracts them thoughts around it. It's like a magnet that attracts many thoughts. And these thoughts then do two things. They detail the image, but they also consider how the abstract desirous image can be made useful for experiences and for our life. And then if we thought well enough about it, we will be able to come up with the appropriate actions. So as you can see in the Enlightenment model, air belongs to the intellect, water belongs to the emotions, fire to the soul, and esprit to the higher self, and earth to the body. The 5 elements are also the 5 subtle carriers of the senses. Turns out we have 5 senses: visual, audio, tactile, taste, and scent. So how does this work? Let me bring up a picture to show you that. So knowledge about objects in the external world comes from focusing attention on them. So, and then through the instrumentality of the 5 senses and their subtle carriers, the elements, the vibrations of that objects will be broken up into 5 and then transferred to the brain and the mind, and they're reassembled. And then the vibrations or the vibrational matrix of the external object will be reproduced in the mind. So there is some kind of a union taking place between the external world and the mind. And through this vibrational union, we are able to form images and ideas about external objects, and that's how we develop our consciousness and our wisdom and our understanding about the external world. So after this long enlightenment detour, let's return to the big 5, and we are now, I think, better and able to really understand what they are and where they come from. So let me repeat the 5 elements. They are not only the 5 elements of the external world and the mind and the subtle carriers of sensation, but they also constitute personality characteristics and traits. They produce our true colors. And the big 5, what are they? They are 5 character domains. So there's conscientiousness, which has 2 sub traits, industriousness and orderliness, and the character trait cloud that hovers around it is things like hardworking, dutiful, detail-oriented, responsible, reliable, being good at routine work, being disgust sensitive, being conservative, competent, orderly, disciplined, and deliberate. Openness has the sub-traits of openness to experience, sometimes called openness proper, and intelligence. And it means to be intelligent, understanding, artistic, philosophic, creative, interested, curious, imaginative, aesthetic, freedom-loving, scientific, exploratory, and free-spirited. That intelligent and artistic belong together may come as a surprise, but they are really the expression of creativity is really the expressions of openness and intelligent openness. And 2000 years ago in Greece, on the universities, they taught math, logic, geometry, and science, but also always at the same time music and other arts. So at that time people still practice both at the same time. It's only in recent times that these 2 things were separated and people believe they're actually 2 entirely different domains. So neuroticism has the subtraits of withdrawal and volatility, and it produces traits like anxious, emotional, volatile, shy, withdrawn, angry, depressed, impulsive, vulnerable, hostile, self-conscious, and irritable. Extraversion has the subtraits of assertiveness and enthusiasm. And extroverted people, they're spontaneous, gregarious, sociable, warm-hearted. They are fond of excitement, positive and optimistic, and active, outgoing, friendly people who are amicable, forthcoming, easygoing, lively, like that. And last but not least, there's the agreeableness with the sub-traits of compassion and politeness. And these kind of people are maternal, caring, cooperative, trusting, straightforward, altruistic, compliant, modest, and tender-minded. So something doesn't feel right here, or rather incomplete. And the reason for that is that 4 of these character traits are considered positive, and only 3 are ambivalent. So let me bring this up. So you have extroversion, which is considered a positive trait, and then introversion. You have agreeableness, which is a positive trait, and the opposite of disagreeableness. Openness, which is positive again, and the pole of that is closeness. And then you have conscientiousness, which is positive, but there is no pole for that. And you have neuroticism, which is considered negative, and again there is no opposite of that. Now, everything in the world comes in pairs. So, for example, temperature expresses itself as hot and cold, depending, of course, on the point of view. So it stands to reason that these character traits also come in pairs. So let's have a look at that, how that could look like. And for that I need to add a few terms here. And this may not be scientific, but for the sake of the discussion. So we have agreeableness and disagreeableness, and I assign that to the element of intuition, the element of spirit or esprit, and the mental faculty of intuition. I'll explain that in a moment, why I came to this. So there's extroversion and introversion, and these are the two poles of intent, which is controlled by focus. And then we have neuroticism, and I decided to call the pole passion, which are the two poles of feelings, which is controlled by imagination. So the reason why I use passion is because neuroticism is also like a passion. Yeah, you're very passionate, but in a negative way. When you're passionate, you expect and you strive, and when you are neurotic, you worry and you distance yourself. Yeah, so I don't think that calmness or peace of mind is the pole to neuroticism, because there is an emotional power behind it, and if somebody is calm, he rather lacks emotion, or mental energy, or has them balanced at that point in time, so the emotions don't express themselves. So the poles are passion, which is like a positive neuroticism. Then there is openness and closeness, and I believe that the element behind that produces the two traits is the intellect. And then we have conscientiousness, and I call it aloofness, but you can use a similar term for that. And these are the two traits of action and practicality, of acting in the external world. And when we act in the external world, there are actually two ways of dealing with the external world. Either you deal with it conscientious, or you be rather aloof and you don't care, and you're careless about what is going on. Or lazy would be another term. So accordingly, also the subtraits are dualistic. It's agreeable, disagreeable, compassionate, indifferent, polite, impolite. Then there's extroversion, introversion, assertive and shy, enthusiastic and apathic, passion and neuroticism, withdrawal, sociable, volatility and firmness. There's conscientiousness and aloofness, with industrious and indolent, orderly and chaotic. And then we have openness and closeness, which is openness and conservatism, that's how I would call it. And then intellect and intelligence, and what is the opposite of intelligence? What is the opposite of intelligence? It's not stupidity, because stupidity is just the absence of intelligence, the absence of the element itself. So the basic faculty of the intellect is to distinguish and to discriminate, to be able to make differences, to discern differences. And hence the opposite of intelligence is to be undiscerning or to be indiscriminate. Mind that the positive and negative poles I have drawn up here are of course subject to discussion, and I don't believe that we can actually call them positive and negative, because there is good in extroversion as well as in introversion, depending on the situation, of course. And when we advance in enlightenment and learn how to control the 5 elements inside of us, we will be actually able to position ourselves voluntarily wherever we want. For example, we can withdraw, we can become sociable at will. We can be passionate or indifferent at will. And that's hence these opposites, we should not really consider them as positive or negative. So of course, all of us have all the 5 elements in our psyche, but according to our personality, one element usually expresses itself predominantly in our personality. And where does this prominence come from? It comes from our astrological constitution, of course, which we received at the moment of birth. So when you are an earthly sign, like Taurus, Virgo or Capricorn, you're likely to be a conscientious and practical person. When you are Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, you're likely to be open and intelligent. When you are Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, you are likely to be a passionate person. And when you are a fire sign like Aries, Leo and Sagittarius, you are likely to be an extroverted person. Having said that, it's of course much more complicated. For example, in Chinese astrology, you have a year sign, and this year sign is usually associated with an element. So, for example, there's a water dragon, there's a fire dragon, etc. And also the planets, which influence the zodiacs, they are also predominantly one element. For example, Mars is a very fiery element. We experience the external world through the 5 senses, so accordingly we also have 5 basic desires, which depends on which elements is strongest in our psyche. We are prone to cherish one of these 5 desires more than the others, and if push comes to shove, we will sacrifice the others for our favorite. So the 5 basic desires are desire for power, that's spirit; for fame, that's fire; for romance, and that's water; excitement and sex, that's air; and wealth or possession, which is earth. And this is how they relate to the big 5. So agreeableness and disagreeableness is related to the desire for power. I'll come back to this in a minute. Extroversion, introversion has to do with the desire of fame. So extroverted people usually like to be famous, celebrities. Neuroticism and passion has to do with romance, revolve around romance. Closeness and openness revolve around excitement. And conscientiousness and aloofness revolve around wealth and possessions. So people who seek power above all the other 4 basic desires for selfish ends are the most disagreeable people on the planet. They might have the outward appearance of nice persons, but if you come to know them, they're usually pretty disagreeable because they're so focused on their success, which is the accumulation of power. An extreme example of that are psychopaths, which are usually seeking power over other people. But when we pursue enlightenment, our thirst for power turns into the desire for intuition and inspiration, as well as control, not over the external world, but over the internal world, which means our personality. And that means control over the 4 lower elements, which is fire, water, air, and earth. And why does enlightenment have to do so much with power? Because the true power everywhere in the internal and external world is spirit, is esprit. And when we pursue enlightenment, we open ourselves to an influx from esprit, from spirit, from the above. And it is very important that when we receive these higher powers, that at the same time we also become agreeable people. If we don't, we may reap the toughest repercussion or karmic repercussion we can possibly imagine. Trying to abuse the spirit for selfish ends, that's a very slippery slope. So when you look at Buddhist monks, for example, yeah, they're the best example for agreeable people. They pursue enlightenment no matter what, and they are compassionate, they are polite, they are caring, they are modest, and they are altruistic. So extroverted people, they usually have a very strong intent and willpower, and what they're seeking is fame most of all. For example, they become celebrities. People with strong feelings or passionate people, they like romance above all. Yeah, and they don't care about money so much or fame or power. They want their romance. But mind that romance exists independent of sex and is on another level, so to say. And we can have romance not just with a partner of the opposite sex, but also we can have a romance, a non-sexual romance with a child or a friend of the same sex, or something we actually create. So intelligent people, they are really prone on excitement. These are the party people, and because excitement, we feel it as a kick in the head, and the proneness for excitements then leads also to enjoyment of drugs, of sex, but also humor. Yeah, smart people are the most humorous people, but mind that all these kind of things do not cater to our emotional side, but rather to our intellectual side. Yeah, it is the intellect who goes bungee jumping or skydiving, not the feelings, which would like to have a dinner at the beach. Okay. So and then there's conscientiousness. Conscientious people are best at accumulating wealth. They're very practical, and but the extreme of wealth is hoarding. I already mentioned that when we pursue enlightenment, these 5 basic desires change. Enlightenment modifies them. So our desire for power turns into desire for intuition and guidance from the higher self, and spiritual power, which means power over our own personality. So let me bring this up. The desire for power turns into desire for intuition and higher guidance. The desire for fame turns into desire for purpose. The desire for romance turns into desire for unconditional love, to love something unconditionally, preferably the whole world. And the desire for excitement turns into desire for happiness, to be thoroughly happy, which is linked to creativity and the fulfillment of our heart's desire. And the desire for wealth will turn into the desire for sense of beauty, to beautify the external world. So mind that romance is still tinged with selfishness. It means that we still want something from the other partner. We want to experience this, and that leads to jealousy and problems. Yeah? Unconditional love doesn't want anything, it just loves. So let me put this all together. So we have the 5 mental elements of our personality: esprit, intent, feelings, thoughts, and action. And then the 5 faculties that control these, which are intuition, focus, imagination, the intellect, and the body, and rather the brain, which gives us the big 5: agreeableness and disagreeableness, extroversion and introversion, passion and neuroticism, openness and closeness, and conscientiousness and aloofness. And the 5 desires: power, fame, romance, excitement, wealth, which turn, if we pursue enlightenment, into enlightenment, purpose, love, happiness, sense of beauty, what I call the 4 soul values, or the 5 soul values. So now I'm going to do a little experiment, something I haven't really done before. I will apply the Big 5 to the Chinese element cycle. The Chinese element cycle shows how the elements create, inflict and destroy each other. Yeah, it comes out of the Feng Shui, Chinese Feng Shui, and is a very great tool for understanding the energies, how the energies in your environment inflict each other, but also how they do that in the mind. So let me bring this up. So according to the element cycle, esprit creates intent. Yeah? So this is an enlightenment secret. And if you want to have a feel of that, you may want to have a look at Carlos Castaneda's Magical Passes, which shows exercises that produce, physical exercises that produce intent. The agreeableness creates extroversion. Yeah, we can't be open to experience if we are a disagreeable person, like a misanthrope or something. Yeah. Then intent. Intent creates action. Yeah, if we intend something, we actually want to bring it about. We want it to manifest itself in the physical external world. Extroversion creates conscientiousness. Yeah, we need to be outgoing in order to be industrious and orderly. Mind that conscientiousness has to do with acting in the external world. It's the earth element. Action creates intelligence because of karma, the feedback loop. So the way we gain understanding is by we think something and then we try it out, if it works or not. So no action, no intelligence. No understanding and no intelligence. Conscientiousness creates openness. Yeah, when we act in the external world, and we see our success, we become open to new experiences. Does intelligence create feelings? Yes, thoughts are the essence of experiences, and they indeed trigger feelings and desires. We see something in the external world and then we want it or want to repeat the situation. Does openness create passion? Yeah, we need to be outgoing and open to experiences in order to have good experiences and then become passionate about things we experience and want to repeat them. Feelings create esprit. This is an enlightenment secret. Again, in the great work we learn how to sublimate desires and turn them back into its essence, which is esprit. Does passion create agreeableness? Yes, I think so. If we are passionate about things, we understand that other people are equally passionate about other things, and that means empathy, and that means agreeableness. So let's have a look at the destruction cycle. Esprit destroys action. That's pretty clear. So when we meditate and pursue enlightenment, the first thing we need to do is we need to stop, sit still, close our eyes and shut out the external world. Does disagreeableness destroy conscientiousness? Yeah, if we are a jerk, we can't be conscientious. We are selfish. Does intent destroy intelligence? Yeah, if we too focus on our intent and what we want, we tend not to think straight and we discard danger. What about introversion and openness? Yeah, if we're introverted, we turn inside, be more concerned with ourselves, and that will destroy our openness to experience. Actions and feelings. Feelings are bound with desires. they produce a unit, and if we act out our desires and satisfy them, our desires and emotions will go to sleep for a while, at least. Aloofness destroys passion. Yeah, if we don't care or if we are lazy, we lose passion. We don't have passion. That's correct. Intelligence and intuition. Intellectual people are prone to shun enlightenment and higher guidance. I don't think I need to go deeper into that. Closeness and conservatism destroy agreeableness. I think that's also pretty clear. Feelings destroy intent. A willful person stays away from passion and sacrifices desires for his goal. And passion destroy extroversion? Yeah, passion is a trip that goes inside. Even if we have a romance, the romance mostly takes place inside. It's the feelings that we experience during a romance that makes our passion. Yeah. So I think the element cycle seems to work to some extent at least. And I think experiments should statistically prove or disprove it. And I hope there is somebody out there, a psychologist out there, who will actually maybe make these experiments one day. So, but why did I bring up the element cycle? Not just as an experiment, there is actually a practical use to it. And the first use is to promote certain elements in yourself. So, for example, if you want to be more intelligent, you should not try to train your intelligence, but rather promote the element that creates intelligence, and that is action. So if you want to be more intelligent, you should create those experimental feedback loops and analyze karma, or in short, experience makes you intelligent. Yeah. You can also apply this element cycle to your relationships and families, and that's very important. For example, if there's a willful person within the family, he or she will be prone to suppressing family members who rely on their intelligence. In the Celestine Prophecies, it's a visionary fiction book, this is mentioned as the relationship control dramas. And they didn't show 5 but 4 roles that people take on, and these are the intimidator, which relates to extroversion and intent, the aloof, which relates to action and conscientiousness, the interrogator, which relates to intelligence and openness, and the poor me, which relates to feelings and neuroticism. So if we apply this to the element cycle, the intimidator, the extroverted, willful person, beats the interrogator, which is the intelligent person. So, a funny example, the children may have the better reason, but as long as they put their feet under dad's table, they have to comply. Yeah? The aloof, which is the antipole to conscientiousness, beats the poor me. Yeah, if somebody makes a poor me drama and the other person doesn't give a damn, so what? Okay, you lose. The poor me loses. Yeah. Well, the interrogator beats intuition. That's not part of the. That's not mentioned in the Celestine Prophecies. And the poor me beats the intimidator. So the intimidator threatens. He likes to threaten people, and if somebody makes a poor me drama, the one who threatens usually loses. So when you want to apply that to your family and relationship, of course you need to educate the others first about this, about the mechanisms of the elements, and come up with an agreed plan on how to avoid the battle of the elements. Last but not least, why is this element cycle there in the first place? yeah, it's vital for life and experience because it makes for perpetual motion. One element appears and it's being destroyed and it's being recreated all the time. So this keeps the world going. This element cycle keeps the world going. If one element would persist or prevail, it would turn the entire universe into itself, like the Agent Smith did in the Matrix. And we don't want that. Thank you for watching this episode of the Inspiration and Enlightenment Slow Talk. Please help spreading the light with a like and a share, and don't forget to subscribe. Love and light.